Hello. I have another book for you. Are you having trouble falling asleep? Well, being the mistress of boring topics, I have a treat for you. I have a book that I got for free. It's a lovely little hardback book, and it was published by the Flower Council of Holland, and it is called Me and My Plant, The Secret to a Blossoming Relationship. I thought I would read you some of it. And maybe it would make you feel sleepy and teach you a little bit about houseplants too. Congratulations on your new love, your new plant. Maybe you fell for it because of its tough leaves, or maybe you are attracted by its beautiful flowers or funny shape. But judging your plant slowly on its appearance is just as superficial. A plant is so much more than beauty alone. Plants emit oxygen, clean the air, and take the stress out of your body. They also combat dry air, make your skin supple, and do your heart good. These green housemates even ensure that you will recover more quickly if you fall ill. This plant book will show you the best way to handle your houseplant. In 6 chapters, we will cover the 6 phases that a love relationship usually goes through, what happens in each stage, and how you can deal with it. We will give you the best tips on how to care for your houseplant, because if you take care of your plant, it will take care of you. Looking after each other in the long term means a little give and take. When you think about it, your relationship with your plant barely differs from a relationship with your loved one. If you can find a beautiful balance, watering it when you're not in the mood, accepting that it can't always have the best spot in the house, then something beautiful will blossom between you, and it will last a lifetime. That is the message from the Flower Council of Holland. It has 6 chapters. The first one's called Falling in Love, and it's about what kind of plants there are and the basics. Then there's a chapter called Phase 2, Living Together, which tells you the right spot for your plant and what plants can make you calm. Phase 3 is called Time for Yourself. How do you leave a plant on its own? And holiday survival tips, among other things. There's Phase 4, or Chapter 4, called New Life, and it talks about propagation and feng shui. Then there's Phase 5, enjoying life together, repotting your plant and pruning. And then Phase 6, growing old together, where they talk about ailing plants and the plant pharmacy and plants that heal you. Then there's a little bit at the end about 30 plants to love and cherish. I'll just read you a little bit from each chapter. Phase 1, Falling in Love. For hours you lie staring at each other. Your eyes wander slowly along its stems. Every day you discover new veins that you find more beautiful, sweet, and endearing. relationship. You are in love. Slowly you get to know each other's character and how best you can complement each other, and you discover what your new sweetheart needs most. Water, fertilizer, light, air, and love. There's a bit where it divides plants up into different archetypes. There is the flowering type, which they call the diva. The diva just loves to show off her magnificent flowers. However, once she withers, little is left of her beauty, and then it's simply a case of waiting until she decides to show her best side again. Only those who know how to pamper her will see her return to her full glory. And then there are the good time divas. Just one night of pleasure and things will never be the same again. But don't keep hoping for a second chance with your poinsettia, primrose, peperomia, or pansy. You will be disappointed. And then there is the leafy type, which they call the rock. The rock has it all, born with magnificently formed leaves and embellished with distinctive patterns. This Adonis won't wrinkle or fade. It just gets more and more beautiful with the years. What's more, you can completely trust the rock, and the longer you're with it, the more it bursts with pride. And all that in exchange for a stable home life and regular care. You will never hear the rock complain, but that's also its weak point. It won't readily admit that it's not having a good time, but will just keep trudging on until, suddenly, after months of neglect, its reserves dry up and it throws in the towel. Then, the last type of plant is the succulents. They call them the Lone Ranger. The Lone Ranger can take care of itself and can last for weeks on end without any care. In fact, it would rather be left to its own devices. It uses its thick shield to keep enemies, such as the hot sun and dry air, at bay, while its hefty knapsack contains enough supplies for it to survive on its own for a very long time. Now and then, however, someone has to be there to organize the little oasis it's created for itself. If not, the Lone Ranger will also die, suddenly and without warning. And it has a lovely little chart of how to identify what type of plant you have. The diva, the Lone Ranger, or the rock. Tells you the basics. It has a tip here. It says, don't give your plant a shower. Instead, pour the water directly in its pot. If necessary, discreetly lift its leaves up. Water is one of the three elements that a plant needs to produce energy, because water plus light plus carbon dioxide equals sugar. If a plant doesn't get water, it will die. However, some plants can last much longer without it than others. The basic rule of when to water is to do it when the earth is dry, but it is hard to judge that sometimes. When it comes to a plant in a small pot, you can assume that if the top layer is dry, the rest is also dry. But applying the same principle to a large pot won't tell you anything about the moisture below. It could well be very soggy at the roots. Sticking your finger in the earth by the rim of the pot provides a lot of information, though. For very large pots, you will need a stick such as a long match. Talks about what influences the need for water. On days when there isn't much light, plants carry out less photosynthesis. That means they need fewer of the other elements, such as carbon dioxide and water, to produce sugar. But when it's hot, they use water to cool themselves down, so they will need more water. And the bigger the plant, the more water it needs. Wind blowing along the leaves causes more evaporation and water loss, so if your plant is in front of an open window or in a draft, it will need more water. Also, dry air draws more water out of your plant than humid air. And it talks about soil and fertilizer. Plants need lots of minerals. Eventually, the soil will deplete, and when it happens, you need to give them some fertilizer. You can do this by adding drops of houseplant feed to the water. You can start using plant food a couple of months after getting them home, but only do so if your new love is shooting up or flowering. Usually this means from spring to autumn. If your plant is getting over an illness or recovering from a fall or a move, don't try to fatten it up. First, let it catch its breath. Did you know that plants were so sensitive? You don't want to give it too much fertilizer. That can make it grow too fast, too quickly, which will weaken the plant. In fact, too much fertilizer will burn the roots. Then it talks about light. How to know how much light your plant needs. It says, to get an idea of the intensity of light at various spots around your home, do the hand paper shadow test. Take a sheet of white paper and hold your hand about 30 centimeters in front of it, between the window and the paper. If a clear shadow of your hand appears on the paper, then your plant is getting intense light, according to what time of day you're doing the test anyway. If you can see your hand, but the image isn't that sharp, then the light is fairly intense. But if there is just a spot on the paper, then there's hardly any light that your plant can use. Finally, if your windows face north, there will barely be any direct light during the day. Your plant will only thrive there if it needs very little. Windows facing south give off the most light. Then it has another quiz. What type of carer are you? And it asks questions like, do you have more than 5 plants, yes or no? Do you have somewhere to put them? Do you get bored easily? Is your home full of exotic knickknacks? Do you brush your teeth more than twice a day? Are there any holes in your socks? Are you someone who doesn't call, or do you Skype from far-flung places? Do you like baking your own cakes? So there's all these different questions, and depending on how you answer them, it will determine whether you are a caring person, a nonchalant person, or an adventurous person. It says the caring type. When it's with you, your plant wants for nothing. It gets drinks when it needs them, a pat on the back, the right temperature, the right light. Who wouldn't want to be spoiled by you? But watch out, you can also go too far. Take care that your partner doesn't drown in your love. You could end up giving it too much water, too much food, and some plants really don't like to be touched. Then if you're the nonchalant type, it says you don't like rules, you do whatever you feel like doing, and you don't believe that everything has to be neat and tidy. So it's unlikely that your relationships, including the one with your plant, will become routine anytime soon. However, there's a danger in being too nonchalant. If you don't take any interest in your plant, it won't be on your mind. Don't forget, your plant needs your constant love and care. Make a couple of mistakes and it will forgive you, but forget it one too many times, and it will be gone. Then the adventurous type. You live life to the hilt. You constantly want to explore new things and are always flitting from one place to another. Because of this, you regularly bring home new stories, experiences, and knowledge, which of course is also fun for your special partner. But it has to be said, you're not very caring. Your plant often has to manage on its own, and more often than not, it won't thank you for those lonely periods. So, and it lets you know, if you are the caring type, your best match is the diva. Because diva plants love to be pampered. They want you to check on it to make sure they have enough water. Every wilted leaf has to be tenderly plucked away. You guys bring out the best in each other. If you're nonchalant, your best match is the rock, because the rock doesn't mind if you don't have a routine. It only wants to be watered maybe once a week. It doesn't care. As soon as you get it home, put it in the best spot, making sure there's enough light. After that, you can leave it to its own devices for a bit. But if you are the adventurous type, your best match is the Lone Ranger. First off, this is a magnificent romance because its appearance alone makes you think of vast open plains and cowboy adventures. Most importantly, though, this is the only type who lets you be exactly who you are, an adventurous social butterfly. You don't have to pay it much attention, and it's fine with that. Just make sure that when you are at home, you make time for it. Here it talks about how plants clean the air. They absorb carbon dioxide. Now chapter 2 is living together. Now it's about finding a place for your plant. They need plenty of light. Divas and Lone Rangers, succulents. So the divas are flowering plants and the Lone Rangers are succulents. They love A-list locations the most. The ones where there's a nice window ledge and bright sun. Sometimes in summer it might be a little too hot, but sometimes it says sun-loving plants are also delighted with attic windows because it's just like being under the open sky. The rock can get away with less light, so you can stick it in a corner away from the window. But a word of warning, if it doesn't get enough light, brown spots will appear on the leaves. It will begin to wilt, and it will be dead in a couple of months. Now it talks about how most plants come from warm climates, but some plants come from chilly climates. It says some plants prosper indoors, but they should stay indoors during the winter too. Flowering and leafy plants are fond of an all-year-round temperature between 18 and 22 degrees centigrade. They don't like being in the cold. By contrast, succulents need a cooler period in winter. In fact, they will only flower if they have hibernated. You should put them somewhere cool between 10 and 15 degrees for 2 months. Cacti even go into hibernation for 3 months and crave a temperature between 4 and 10 degrees. During this period, you'll hardly need to give them any water. It says plants make us more productive. It's pretty. It's a picture of some chrysanthemums. porous, which means they can breathe. On one hand, it means they also absorb water, so you have to water more often. But the tiny holes ensure that air can enter them, which is vital for keeping the roots fresh and healthy. It says that your plant can help you calm down. That there was an experiment conducted by Helen Russell at the University of Surrey. And yes, the people who are sitting in a room full of plants were less stressed than the human calculators in the plantless room. What's more, the stress of the testing dissipated faster from their bodies than the control group who weren't surrounded by plants. Alright. This is what it says. It says, you count 78 numbers without using a calculator or your fingers. You're subjected to unexpected blasts of noise. You have sensors all over your body. And to top it off, a scientist is standing on the other side of the door, waiting for the results of your sums. That's where they found that people in the room with plants did better, were more relaxed. Now it talks about what to do if you go on vacation when you have a plant. Let's get a plant sitter, or take them out of full sun, but make sure they have enough light. It shows ways to make the system to water them while you're out. It talks about how plants can communicate. They actually do communicate in some way. Plants help you breathing. It's about adding houseplants, new houseplants, taking clippings, replanting them, using rooting hormone so that they produce roots. It tells you all the ways you can propagate your plants, leaf cuttings, and taking divisions and shoots. There's a chapter about feng shui. It talks about ways to pamper your plants, like on a warm, rainy day, place your plant outside so it can be rinsed clean. Or if you don't have a garden or a terrace, or if it's winter, put your plant in the shower and shower with lukewarm water if it's all dusty. You want to dust them because that way they can get the most out of the sunshine. Oh, here it talks about plants and music. Professor Stefano Mancuso of the University of Florence explained in the Dutch daily newspaper Tro, probably pronouncing that wrong, precisely how the effect is caused. This is the effect of plants producing more grapes, or their grapes ripening sooner. It seems it's not important whether a tune sticks in your head, but whether the sound waves are pleasant. Sound waves are vibrations, and plants are sensitive to them. They especially like low-frequency waves below 1000 Hz. He went on to say that plants on the surface of the cells had ionic channels, a bit like pores in fact. Sound waves make these pores fluctuate more at opening and closing. That's how they react to vibrations. Then it talks about what kind of music plants like. Stevie Wonder, Enya, Brian Eno, Mozart, Simon and Garfunkel, Marvin Gaye. Talks about moving plants and repotting them, how to do it the right way. plants influence each other in any other way. They adapt their roots to each other. When a plant notices that another plant in the neighborhood is very good at extracting nutrients in the topsoil, then he will delve deeper into the earth with his roots than he would otherwise. See, they're not so stupid, these plants. Secret plant. Plants can make things quiet. It says the best sound absorber plants are the weeping fig, dragon's blood tree, peace lily, dwarf umbrella tree, heartleaf, philodendron. Philodendrons are great because they're very hard to kill. We have a peace lily too. It's quite a good plant for us in our house. Now it talks about plant diseases, how to notice them, what to do if your plant seems sick. Limp leaves, that's usually to do with watering. Either it's getting too little or too much. Don't want to overwater it. Yellow edges usually mean, or in brown edges, it says it means dry air. What you can do, it says, is put a bowl upside down underneath the pot and immerse the pot in a shallow pool of water. So water slowly evaporates and creates a local, more humid climate for the plant. The explanation is worded a bit funny, but I think what I've read is that if you put your plant on a dish and put a little water in the bottom of the dish, it evaporates and gives your plant just a little bit more humidity directly around it. Spider mites. Rot. It talks about how to save plants, how to give plants support. And then plant pharmacy. If houseplants were edible, we would have called them vegetables. And not only do some of them taste bad, but they're also poisonous. However, the sap of the aloe vera is one exception. What's more, it's even healthy for you. If you smear it onto your skin, any eczema or wounds will disappear into thin air. It says it's the easiest medicinal houseplant to grow at home. You should always have aloe vera. However, the sap will only work its magic when it's fresh, so only break off a leaf when you need it. It says aloe vera is good for superficial burn wounds, sunburn, irritated skin, mosquito bites and bites from other insects, and pregnancy stretch marks. If you only have to treat a very small area, break off a small piece of leaf, rub the sap from it into your skin. If you need a larger amount, break off a whole leaf and let the sap drip out the bottom. Then cut open the leaf so that nothing is lost. If you have a burn wound, you could also wrap the juicy leaf onto it, juicy side down, and leave it there so it absorbs well. Bind the leaf with a bandage and leave it there for as long as possible. Whether you choose a diva, a rock, or a lone ranger, each type of plant has its own strengths and weaknesses. One is rather exuberant, the other is a little more subdued, another is easygoing, the other more demanding. But whatever one you choose, these stunning beauties all have one thing in common. They make life just that little bit